Hello and welcome to a new episode of Lowdown. Today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by my Irish American friend Dennis Lukens, who's currently the technical director of FC Dynamic in Ukraine. Dennis, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Connor, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Dennis, there's quite a lot to unpack in that opening statement. And where in the world are you at this present time?
I'm actually in the country of Ukraine. My wife and son are Ukrainian citizens, and I own a home here. I've been here for about 11 years, but I go back and forth between Ukraine and America. I've got some business interests, soccer interest in America. And as you know, I've been also going back and forth between Ireland in the last 2 years, working on a project over there.
And I suppose, what is your earliest memories of football? What does the game of football mean to Dennis?
Well, it's funny because, I think back on it, and I was lucky because at lunchtime, the gym teacher rolled out a soccer ball, and he rolled that soccer ball out every day. And so this is a long time ago. I'm going to date myself, but it was in the 1950s. Let me think about that one. It was in the 50s, late 50s, and the early 60s in New York. And thank God he rolled out that soccer ball at lunchtime. And it's like everything else in life, so I was like the best guy, we just played as a gang, there's no tactics, you just chase that ball, but I was really good, and it spurred me to continue on and play, at the junior high school level. I want to go out for the junior high school team. Geez, I'm going to brag now, but I went out for the junior high school team. And this is, again, a very long time ago, seventh and eighth and ninth grade, if you can imagine. But we had a soccer team. We played with Tom Finney shoes. I had a Tom Finney shoes with a steel toe. And I took all my corner kicks I towed them in, and penalty kicks, everything I towed with the steel toe I had. But I was the top scorer in the junior high school, So it's, like everything else, if you're good at something, you follow it and you pursue it. I was lucky that I had these opportunities for sure. Unfortunately, I broke my leg 3 times. As I said earlier, skiing. I was also a ski racer, so I broke my leg 3 times, and I didn't play for some years. But I eventually had 2 operations on my ankle. I said this earlier. I walked with crutches for maybe 3 years. I walked with a cane for months. But I eventually got back, and I played high school soccer on Long Island, which is a very high standard. If anybody from America would tell you that Long Island, New York soccer is at the highest level in the country. And again, I was a successful, good player, scored a lot of goals. So then I got a chance to go to college, and I went to college and played college level. It was just one of those things, I just followed it. People don't realize that soccer is very big in America. Even now it's huge, but even when in my time, the other sports were bigger and more well known, but we had a lot of different ethnic groups. Again, I'm Irish. My mother came over on the boat from Ireland, but there were times there's Irish, there's the Scots. There was all different types of nationalities living in New York at those times, and they carried forward their traditions from the old countries. And one of those traditions was soccer, actually, and people don't know that.
And how does a kid like you growing up in New York in the 50s, 60s, being prominent, being known for being a toe bagger with the steel cap boots, how does he go from being that kid to being one of the very few Americans that has a UEFA Pro license?
Oh, I don't know. Geez, I don't know. So these people ask me this sometimes, but even when I was a kid, even when I was like maybe 14 or so, I would work with the kids on the street. I would teach them. The younger kids on the street, we'd play ball together. I was also a very successful baseball player and basketball player. In America, you didn't typically play one sport, you played multiple sports. So I played multiple sports. And I would coach the kids on my street. All the time, and it's just something that I was drawn to. I don't know why. So I was really lucky that my father arranged an interview for me to go to a place called Springfield College. That name wouldn't jump out at you, but it's basically the Harvard of physical education. At that time, it was the #1 physical education school in the United States. And the mission is to develop physical education teachers and coaches. So my whole educational background as a college student was to be a coach. That's what they developed us for. I got lucky. My grades weren't good enough to get into it. Springfield College. I was a top player at the high school level scoring goals, but I'd make you laugh a little bit. We have to laugh a little bit on these podcasts. My father, as I told you, came up with nothing, but he, worked his way up. And prior to becoming one of the most powerful men in New York City, he was born and raised in Cincinnati, and he went through World War II and rose to colonel. And then he went back to his hometown and worked in the mayor's office. He was the deputy to the mayor. And there was a guy who ran the local YMCA there, and he would constantly come and ask for money to support the projects. And my father always found a way to get that money for them. He'd go to the mayor and say, look, sports kids, we can find the money. And so my father always made sure that YMCA had money for their programs to develop sports for the kids. My father had done that. So when I went for my interview at Springfield College to get into the school, and I shouldn't have gotten into the school, the person who was the dean of students there was the guy from the YMCA. He was the director from Cincinnati. It was the director from Cincinnati who my father funneled the money for to develop sports. So my interview was not held at the university. I went to the guy's house and sat in his living room while he interviewed me. And you can imagine how that interview went and what the result was in the end. Because my father had helped him all those years ago. So my father pulled the strings, and I got into the best sports university in the United States. So that's sort of how I got going on coaching, I could continue on and tell you how I I'll try to do it fast. I can tell you step by step how I got to the UEFA Pro. I can be quick. So, when I was playing, we played in the university level, our team was 3-time New England champion. Then I started to play in the ethnic leagues. They would pay us to play. And then the North American Soccer League came, which is like MLS now, and Pelé, Beckenbauer, all the big boys. But when it first came around, it didn't have all those guys. So we were told, hey, there's a league coming around, the NASL. And I tried out for it, actually. And I went to a training camp with the Boston Minutemen, and I was there for about a month. And I got invited to go down to Florida to their final training camp. And like the fool that I was back in those days, I didn't go. I decided to be a teacher, and I went in a different direction. I figured I could play in the ethnic leagues and make my $100 on Sunday and also teach. I didn't go to the final training camp. So then I got a job teaching at a private school, and I started coaching. I coached the ninth grade soccer team. Now, so when I'm coaching the ninth grade soccer team, do you think I could have ever believed that I would coach in Europe? I didn't think of it. I didn't dream of it. In America, you wouldn't have had those dreams, to be the next Sir Alex Ferguson. That wasn't a dream. I just was doing it, and I liked it. I decided I wanted to be a college coach. So I got a job as an assistant coach at University of Bridgeport. Then during that time period, I went and got my C license, my B license, and I got my A in C, like 3 months. You couldn't do that now. But I was young, I was fit, I was a good player still. We had to participate. And I had studied physical education. I had the educational background. I got my license like that. It wasn't that easy, but I got it. And then I got a job at Southern Connecticut State University with a genius, smartest football coach I ever met in my whole life. He was doing things that Klopp and Pepe do now. We were pressing all over the field. We were playing out of the back with the keepers. We're doing things they do now that Pepe's playing with the keeper. They're pressing. Well, we were doing this 30 years ago. And then I don't know, I became a college coach myself, a head coach, and I went to a school that was very poor, and I dragged them up, and we became very successful, set like 18 school records while I was there. And then there was a pro league coming around, and there was a franchise for sale. And me being the fool that I am, I bought a franchise, and I made myself head coach, president, and technical director. So I coached in a league called the USISL, but I also played. I played in the USISL. It was considered third tier, but it wasn't. It was really second tier because there was no MLS. There was the A League and then USISL. So it was like first division. So I played and coached, and we had some great players who played for the U.S. national team and went on to bigger. 6 of our players went on to the MLS when the MLS came around, and then that ended. I'd lost about $250,000 US on it. And I decided to get out of the game. I quit. I decided I'd never coach again. I'd lost a boatload of money, and it was a very negative experience. But I was going to the gym one day about a year later. I was working as a financial consultant, the only job I ever had outside of soccer. And I was going into a gym, and a guy came up to me and said, "Hey, you're Dennis Lukens, aren't you?" I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "You're that soccer coach." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I want you to coach my team." I said, "Well, I'm not in the business anymore." He goes, "There's a girls under 11 team." I said, "Well, I'm not so sure I want to coach a girls under 11 team." He said, "But is the best team is the best team in Massachusetts?" I said, "Well," he said, "I'll do all the work. I'll recruit all the players. I'll organize everything. And I want you to be the coach." I said, "Well, $100 an hour paid at the end of every session, and I'll do it." He said, "Okay." And we won the national championship. We won the national title. We beat everybody. And it was so it gave me a girls under 11 team gave me the passion again to come back to it. And they were such great girls. They went on to college careers. It was wonderful. So then I went online and I started surfing around, and I saw that a team called the Bay Area Seals had just been bought. So I emailed the guys, told them I knew everything there was to know about professional soccer. They hired me as president of the company. I flew out to California with they gave me a cell phone, a hotel room, and a rented car. They had no players, no stadium, no offices. They said, "You got to create it." So in 3 months, I created it, offices, staff, found a stadium, and built a team. And I knew when they made me president, I'd just make myself head coach. So I made myself head coach, and we made the playoffs. And so I had a career in America before I came here, and then I coached in the MISL as well. So I coached two teams at really the second tier in America, like first division. And then I coached in the major indoor soccer league as well. And then I got a chance to coach in the Olympics with the St. Lucian Olympic team in the Olympic qualification tournament for CONCACAF. I went down to St. Louis. I became their head coach for 2 years. We lived down there. And then that job ended. We didn't make the Olympics. We'd sold the house in America, in California, and I went to Ukraine to rest for 2 weeks with my wife to visit her mother. So we went there for 2 weeks, and that was 11 years ago. We stayed for 11 years.
My God, that's some story altogether, Dennis. I don't know which part to pick up, but possibly the Ukrainian bit. I was always intrigued as to how an Irish American would end up in Ukraine. But one story you recounted to me before, Dennis, I thought was absolutely fantastic. Your initial first job in Ukrainian football.
Okay, I'll tell that story. I was about to come to that. So so here I am in Ukraine, and I've had and so look, I'm a passionate person, and I'm very passionate. I'm so passionate about soccer, and then I was extremely passionate. And I'd worked my whole life, like I'm no different than anybody, but I'd worked my whole life, to get to where I went from coaching a ninth grade team. And in how many years? I don't know. In 20 years, I went from coaching a ninth grade team to having the highest licenses you can have in America. I had the NSCA national diploma as well. I got that. To coaching, at second tier and involved with MLS teams, to coaching the major indoor soccer, to coaching in the Olympic qualification games, to stand in the stadium during an Olympic qualification, a full stadium, of people. And as the Olympics, it was the qualification. I mean, that thrill is hard to replicate. And so when I went to Ukraine and we were there visiting her mother, well, my wife's Ukrainian, okay. So what am I? Am I a computer guy? No. Am I a financial consultant? No. What am I going to do? Well, after 3 days, I got bored. And what did I do? I started calling clubs. I got a translator to help me. My wife was visiting the family. They were doing stuff here and there, and I would be on the phone calling the clubs. I called 33 clubs, and everybody said no, and most of them laughed. Two of the clubs said, and this is the truth, two of the clubs said, "Well, you're an American and there's a basketball team in town, and you'd probably do very well with the basketball. They probably need an American basketball coach. You could coach the basketball team." I'm trying to coach. I tell them I got an A license from America. I want to coach the soccer team. They tell me, "Well, go coach the basketball team in town." So that's how it went. But one guy said yes. One out of 33. A guy named Alexander Lvovich, and he invited me down to a place called Crimea, and I went to Crimea. we drove down there. My wife, Natasha, acted as a translator. And we went to, I'll tell the story, but look, Alexander Lvovich in my mind is a prince among men. So we drive up to the front door, and there's two big guys standing there in front of the door. It's like, in suits. It's like, what were these guys? And my wife says, well, this is Dennis Lukens. He's here to see Alexander Lvovich. They speak into their cell phone. The door opens. We go through a hallway. We go to another door. There's two big guys in suits standing in front of that door. And it's like, okay. Dennis Lukens to see Mr. Lvovich. They opened the door. We walk into an office. And in that office was a huge office, beautiful office. And there was a big photo behind the desk. And that photo was a photo of some guy, young guy with no shirt on, with his arm around the first president of Ukraine, and his arm around the current president, whose name was Yanukovych. So he's like a 28-year-old guy with his arm around two presidents. He's got no shirt on. And while we're gawking at that photo, the door opens and out comes the guy, Alexander Lvovich. And we sat there, and there was another guy there too. And we sat and talked. And he said to me, Dennis, you've come from America, and you called me on the phone. You're an American, and you've driven 4 hours to come see me. You've come to my club all the way from America. You walk around my club. You find a spot for yourself. You find a job that you think we need help with, and it's going to be your job. He said, you can't be the head coach. I'm not firing my head coach. He said, I'm not firing the assistants. They're all good guys. So you can't be part of that group, but I want you to be part of my club. Find a job for yourself and tell me on Monday what job you want. I swear to God. And I walked around the club. Everybody treated me like a prince. And, Ukrainian people, I think the one thing about Ukraine is the people are fantastic. Like everywhere else, there's a few, small percent that are trouble, but they're really good people. And I'll always remember Alexander Lvovich giving me that opportunity. And I walked around that club, and everybody treated me like a prince with respect and kindness. And I named myself like I was a scout to bring European and American players and trying to scout them from all over and bring them to the club. And then they started talking about making me the technical director. It was amazing, really. And the last bit about the story. So the first time I'm there now, and I'm like this chief scout. They call me a selection trainer. Is the first game that I'm there, and they're playing Shakhtar Donetsk. So we're playing FC Sevastopol is playing Shakhtar Donetsk in our stadium, and I'm sitting on the bench. And it hit me. Shakhtar Donetsk played Barcelona 4 days before that in the Champions League. So here I am, an American, 6,000 miles away from home, and I'm sitting on the bench with a team that just played against Barcelona. I said, this is a really good place to be. And so that's how I got started in Ukraine. I was really lucky. I mean, so every time I say I'm lucky, my wife said, no, you weren't. Because it's like everything else in life, like we're discussing about determination and drive, I mean, you just have to believe in yourself. You have to never give up. You have to, I have to remind myself that when I go back to Ireland, don't give up, keep going forward, with the League of Ireland. But I made that opportunity for myself. Yes, Alexander Lvovich was a gentleman and a prince, and he gave me the opportunity. But, I called 30, they hung up on me 33 times. 32 times, and the 33rd person said yes. And we drove 4 hours. We went down there, we met the guy, and and we would drive 4 hours down and 4 hours back twice a week. We rented an apartment down there, and lived there while I did this job. So, and then Alexander Lvovich said to me, Dennis, if you want to be successful, you got to learn how to speak Russian. Part of the country speaks Ukrainian, part speaks Russian. In this particular area in the south where I am, they speak Russian primarily. So he said, learn how to speak Russian. So I learned how to speak Russian, and I left there eventually, and I went on and I took a break. And then another gentleman, Alexei Krucha, who was the president of Kherson Crystal, I applied for a job with him. He hired me as the technical director. And then when I left and went to America to run my training camps, and while I was gone, they lost 9 games in a row. So I came back. I went to a meeting the first day, and he fired the head coach in front of everybody. And the first guy that the head coach looked at was me. I had just arrived. So the Alexei Krucha did the training sessions, for the first week or so. He's a smart man, a top man, but he wasn't a trained coach at that moment. And I asked him if I could do a training session. So he let me do a training session. And I did a second training session, a third training session. And then on Saturday, we won. They won for the first time in 9 games. And then the next week, he said, do all the training sessions. So I did all the training sessions and we won again. And the players went to Alexei Kruch and said, you got to make this American head coach. And he made me the head coach. And so again, I can only thank Alexei Kruch for making me head coach. I became the first and only American to coach professional soccer in the country of Ukraine and the entire former Soviet Union. To this day, I believe it's still true. I was actually inducted into, I was honored by the Ukrainian Sports Hall of Fame 2 weeks ago. When I was in America, I went to the Hall of Fame and they honored me as what I've just described, the first and only American to coach professional soccer in the country of Ukraine. I brought 2 of my jerseys from my clubs and they're hanging in the Ukrainian Sports Hall of Fame now. So I've been very lucky. I've been very fortunate. I made my luck, but I've been very, very fortunate. A lot of people helped me along the way. My wife in those days was with me every step of the way, behind me every step of the way, translating for me. Alexei Krucher, Alexander Lvovich. But I did teach myself to speak Russian. Last little bit I'll say about this, people listening, I keep talking about determination. So when I became head coach of Kherson Crystal, I would take my BMW had blown the engine. So I was taking a bus 2 hours down and a bus 2 hours back every single day. And for 2 hours on the way down, I would listen to Russian words and 2 hours back. So I was listening to Russian. I started by just phrases like "igrai bystre," which means play quickly. "Одна kasani" with one touch. "Иди сюда," come here. Learning all the different words like "нападающий," which is striker. "Защитник," which is the defender. So I taught myself to speak Russian using a recorder on the bus going there and back. And then eventually, within about a month, I was able to do the training session without a translator. I could speak Russian to the guys and do training sessions. So it's like everything else in life. If you want to do something bad enough, you'll give everything you have to get to that place, to get to that goal. So I went from coaching, 9th grade kids in, my first job to coaching professional soccer in Europe. I mean, it's mind-numbing. And then I went on and took all the UEFA licenses. And I took the UEFA Pro license with Andrei Shevchenko and Anatoly Tomashuk. To be sitting together with Sheva. Sheva came up to me and shook my hand and said, "You're an American. Welcome to Ukraine." He said, anything I can do to help you, he spoke in English. "Anything I can do to help you, please let me know. My wife's American. My sons were born in America. You're here. You're our guest in this country. I understand your wife's Ukrainian. If I can help you, you tell me, and I will help you." This is the biggest man in all of Ukrainian football. Tell me he's going to help. He'll help me. It's crazy. And I've maintained contact with Andrei, and Anatoly Tomashuk is not a household name in Ireland, but 144 caps for Ukraine. He played for Bayern Munich and won the Champions League. Anatoly, I'm working with him right now on some projects. So anyway, I've been really fortunate to meet a lot of good people along the way. A lot of people helped me along the way. So many people behind me. It's the same thing in Ireland. Christ, I was crying a bit early about, it didn't work out for us, but so many people helped us. So many people were behind us. And that's what life's about,
I think it's just absolutely testament to yourself as a person, Dennis, and the hard work. And that desire. And we spoke off camera before about your family even moving to the States before all of this. Yeah. But it's just, if you want anything in life, opportunities where preparation meets luck. And you speak about that, having that relentless determination. And it's something that you still have to this date because, you're back in Ukraine now, but in between the last 4 or 5 years, you've been working with Irish Seas. Could you tell everybody listening a bit more about that project?
Well, the objective of Irish CFC, I just named it Irish CFC, just pulled it out of the air. People sort of laughed at the name, but I had to come up with a name. I was formed the corporation. I didn't want it to be any specific name because I didn't know what club I was trying to buy a club at that time, and I was looking at different. So I couldn't name it really any specific club. So I just came up with a generic name. The objective was initially to purchase a club. I negotiated with one club for a long period of time, did Zoom calls, provided financial statements, references, everything. And in the end, the deal was slow to get done. And then unfortunately, COVID-19 came. I was flying back and forth before COVID-19. And I can remember having a really hard cough. And I was having difficulty speaking. And the woman who in Ireland who I became friends with. I had a beer with her. She said, there's some strange things going around. You're sure you're okay? I don't know that I had COVID-19 that I think I might have. I don't know. I had it subsequently just about 3 months ago. But the thing fell apart due to COVID-19 because that club, like all clubs, lost a substantial amount of money in the next 9 months. So we tried to complete the deal 9 months on, but their income was cut in half. They had lost a significant amount of money that they'd hoped that I would help fund, and then on top of that, we saw no end in sight. The income levels were not going to go back up to where they were anytime soon. So I backed away from the deal. They were good guys. They worked hard to try to make the deal with me, but in the end, COVID-19 killed it. And I think back on it now, if I had bought the club then, I would have been in a whole heap of trouble, because what I've described to you would have been on my back, income cut in half, losing substantial sums of money, and plus then just operating under COVID-19 conditions, trying to operate. I mean, when you're trying to run a stadium and have people come to games, it's very difficult to run a game. All the protocols you've got to go through. So I think maybe it's a blessing in disguise, maybe. And even with Dublin County FC that we didn't get the license for, I believe that we could have gone forward and been successful, but it would have been a tough nut to crack, I think. If we had started playing in February, where would we be now? I mean, I think we'd be struggling a bit, possibly. I don't know. We'll never know, but COVID-19 really kicked all our asses for sure.
It's a terrific story, your career. It's a testament to the person you are, that you're still here, still embarking on new challenges back in Ukraine. But I mean, hopefully someday, Dennis, you'll pen it all in a book. But very quickly before you go, I want to be appreciative of your time. For anyone who's embarking on their own footballing journey, be it wishing to coach abroad, wishing to learn a foreign language, coach in a different country, or whatever the dream is, what advice would you have for them?
Well, I would say never give up, because I've had lots of setbacks in my life, in my professional life and in my personal life too. We all have them, and you got to get back up again, and you got to try again, no matter where it is. And if you keep doing that, something good will come eventually. I mean, it may be different than what you thought it was going to be, but something good will come. I hope to be back in Ireland, but now I've got this opportunity in Ukraine. I've got some really good people that are working with me now who I never imagined would want to work with me. Anatoly Chumashuk, one of the most famous football players in Ukraine. He's the second most famous player. He SMS'd me a week ago now. He wanted to work with me. I mean, it's like, how did this happen? So I would say there's never give up. I think getting qualified is important. The licenses are difficult, and a lot of people, it's not people who don't chase them poo-poo it. But having all the licenses is important, I believe, because there's different reasons why people are successful coaches, and we don't even know the reasons sometimes. I mean, you can't really put your finger on that guy's going to be a successful coach or not as successful. You don't know. But I think having the qualifications, and I think being educated, upside down, sideways, and backwards, and being in contact with all the different people you meet in the courses, I think is invaluable. I really do. I think if a young person is coming through, try to find the smartest coach you know of and work with that guy. I got completely lucky. A guy named Bob DeCrane, I mentioned earlier, his name's Bob DeCrane, and I got a job at Southern Connecticut State University as his assistant. And he's a genius. And people in America know who he is. They won multiple national titles. He was literally doing things that people talk about today as innovative 30 years ago. And I worked for him. So he taught me more than any course could ever teach me. So having a mentor, and Bob DeCrane was my mentor, having a mentor is really important. At 25, you don't know it all. Maybe at 35, you don't know it all. And working with someone really smart and really good is really helpful, I think. So working with someone really good, getting a mentor, taking all the courses, take as many licenses as you can, because you're going to meet all kinds of different people, not only from a learning standpoint, but from a connection standpoint too. A lot of guys you're going to be connected with now going forward into the future. Those are critical. And lastly, never give up, because you're going to get knocked down, and you're going to think you're reaching for a dream and you're not going to get it. I got within 4 hours of reaching my dream of having a team in the League of Ireland, and it didn't happen, but you can't give up. You got to find another way to make it happen. So that would be my advice to any young person. That would be my advice. I think that, sports just offers so much to everybody. We talked about drugs and the diversions and the internet and, YouTube and, well, if you're out there playing sports, you're not going to be involved with drugs and alcohol. If you're out there playing sports, you're not on YouTube. You're not using the phone to pass the time. If you're training, preparing, taking care of your body, eating properly, respect for authority, showing up on time, being part of a team, this is all life skills. So I really think that sport, no matter what it is, whether it's basketball, soccer, whatever it is, I think is a critical aspect of any young person's life, boys and girls growing up.
Yeah, I'd have to second that. I mean, for me, as I said off camera to yourself, Dennis, football really is a microcosm of life. And I think everybody who's tuned in today listening to yourself is going to keep on tabs with your own journey. And where's best to keep up to date with you in the socials, Dennis?
Well, since I don't have a club in Ireland, I don't do much on social media. If we do get a club, I then will launch big and all that. But right now, I just have my own Facebook page. It's just like everybody got 700 friends or something, just people that I know and so forth. But I'm on this. It describes who I am, what I've done, and it's got pictures of things I've done in my life. It's just Dennis Lukens. That's all. But we'll launch some more stuff if we do get in the League of Ireland. And we'll say I try not to pray for money or success, only for good health. But I'll have to say I may have to pray a little bit to get into the League of Ireland, and I will.
We'll definitely have to get you on for a second episode if that's the event. But Dennis,
my mother and grandparents are watching from above, and they're watching my every move, and they certainly would be very proud of me if we did. If we were able to get into the League of Ireland, of course. And I will say, Connor, let me end by saying, I'm very proud to be Irish. I am very, very proud to be Irish and to be an Irish citizen. And I love Ireland. And I'm not just saying that, it's true. Every time I've been there, I just love being there. I'm going again for 2 weeks with my son. On August 18th, we fly out. We're going there for a vacation. We're going there because that's where we want to be for our vacation. And I'm excited to be there, and I can't wait to get to Ireland again. Again, I'm very, very proud. Just like my mother. My mother made sure that I was proud to be Irish, all of us, and I still am very much.
Yeah, we look forward to welcoming you back home to Ireland, Dennis, and sometime soon you'll have a League of Ireland club to boot. But for the meantime,
let's hope.
Thanks a million for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Really do appreciate that, and speak soon.
Okay, thank you, Connor, very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot.